Cool. So welcome to our webinar all about prioritization. Brilliant when you get it right and a potential disaster when you get it wrong. Prioritization is a key part of building a SaaS product. So we're going to take a look at best practices and run through what we've learned from our first survey of the year. My partner in prioritization for this webinar, sorry Joe, is Joe Daniels, who heads up content here at Receptive.
Hi everyone. So we like our webinars to be short and packed full of useful and practical info. At the end of the day, we want you to enjoy it and not be completely bored. Also keep an eye out at the end for our resources, which are going to go into a lot more detail. This webinar is about a new approach to prioritization. We're going to take a look at what we've learned from other SaaS companies about how they prioritize, and then we're going to share a load of market-leading tips and tricks which are going to change the way you prioritize.
If there's any questions, by the way, as we go through, just drop them straight in the chat and Joe will pick them up and we'll go through them at the end. So why prioritization is key to product success? I'm just going to spend just a couple of minutes kind of putting a bit of context around all this. So prioritization for me is really summed up in one line. It's a lesson I've learned over and over again over the years, which is that you really can't build everything, so you shouldn't try. I'm sure you're all well aware of that as well. The hard part about building a good SaaS product is knowing where you should spend your time and your team's time, so that you're creating a product that not only works for your customers, but actually your business as well.
We actually ran a survey a few weeks ago to try and identify the current issues that SaaS companies face when it comes to prioritizing feedback. We've also had a look at some other research by Mind the Product and by Richard Banfield. Basically, we all found the same thing. Prioritization is a huge challenge. In fact, 36% of SaaS companies aren't happy with how they currently prioritize according to our research. It's not very good, is it, Han?
No, Joe.
In fact, this comes out on top, even when ranked by relative importance. That's why we think it's important to help as many of you out as possible. There's a lot of blog posts and websites that talk about a range of different techniques you can use to prioritize. The trouble with these is that they all seem to miss the bigger picture. If you want to prioritize successfully, you can't view it in isolation or treat it as a product management task. It isn't just a case of shuffling features around and making yourself look busy. So we've come up with an easy way of remembering what you need to think about.
You know, like little ways of remembering things. So unfortunately you do, Joe, yeah. So the 3 P's of prioritization. There's a picture of peas to help you remember that. Oh, excuse me, we just got can you see the questions?
Yeah, it's Dan saying that
you're
a lot quieter.
Get yourself over.
Han just shouts, that's why.
I'm shouty, you need to move over here a bit. So we've handily called it the 3 P's of prioritization to help you remember these 3 things. It's just a little bit of groundwork that is going to set you up for life. For life, for your product life. So always think about these 3 things when you start looking at prioritization of features and improvements in your SaaS product. So first off is the plan. Every prioritization decision you make has to be against your company plan or your strategy. If you don't have one, you need to get one. If it's unclear, make it clear. And if you do have one, just slap a copy where you can all see it. Second P is people. Now, I've always thought prioritization is actually all about people. And I think it's really helpful as product managers to accept and embrace that. I've always found it's a lot more about politics than it is which features make it on your product roadmap. And finally, process. A good process gets rid of a great deal of the people management issues you might experience. A good process keeps everyone aligned and on board with what you're trying to achieve as a product team, from your execs to your customers. And we're going to go through best practices for these things as we move through the webinar.
So just to summarize that little part, you can't build everything. Prioritization should never be done in isolation. You need to remember 3 P's, which are plan, people, and process. And it's time to start thinking big. How can you help the business?
I think 3 P's, see how fast you can say it's like a little
tongue twister.
Yeah, you don't have to do it now.
Oh.
So
it's a shame.
It would have been funny.
Been practicing.
So we're going to have a look at the 3 P's at a more practical level. So first off, it really is all about the plan. So many people have a product strategy and that's great, but everything really has to tie back to the company plan as well. And this is the stuff like when I started off in like project or product management, you didn't really get taught any of these things. It's very easy to kind of get into the day-to-day without ever stopping and taking a step back. But if you do this, it'll make you, like really stand out in your organization as a product team as well. So everything you choose to improve or build in your SaaS product should support the business, and it's as simple as that. So as the slide says, just know what your company plan is. If you haven't got a plan in place, you've got no chance when it comes to prioritization, because the plan is your framework that every decision should be made against. And in our survey, actually, we did find that a lot of SaaS companies do look at the strategy, which is really good, and help find best fit items there.
So at the risk of sounding like a politician, prioritization should be about the people, not just the product. There's a really good quote from Richard Banfield's research into the same area. He encourages product teams to think about collaboration, not consensus. He says, prioritization can be polarizing because it's often perceived as choosing one person's ideas over another's. When people have something personal invested in an idea or a feature that's on the chopping block, emotions can start to run high. The solution is collaborating at several levels, and it starts with developing a shared vision and purpose for the product. Getting buy-in to the company vision and the why driving that vision are essential. Agreement and understanding of both the company and product vision give the team a North Star. The key to breaking this potential stalemate is not to set consensus as the goal. Collaborating towards a solution doesn't require this. This concept is not new to leaders, but it might be new to the realm of product leadership.
That was a lovely reading, Joe.
Yeah.
You can move on.
I'm paid to read.
But we really liked that quote, and when we came to, we've thought this for a long time, but when we read that piece from Richard, I just thought he'd written it really nicely. So we totally agree. And you actually create that consensus by bringing data and process to prioritization. So we'll talk you through that bit next. So we're going to look at some ways you can involve people in prioritization in like a really positive way, and this is where a little bit of process is key. And Mind the Product, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, they did a survey around the same topic actually at the end of last year. And no surprise at all that the area that product leaders wanted to improve most when it came to help with prioritization was data and process. We've been working with scaling and enterprise SaaS companies for a few years now. And we've seen that those two elements are like absolutely key to getting prioritization down. So we're going to go through our top learnings about what works, and thanks to all our customers on the webinar who've kind of worked with us on this, made a huge contribution, and we'll make sure all of this is written up. So we'll run through stuff on a high level, and then you can dig into the detail after the webinar. So these are all like process tips we've put together, which might be a bit unusual from the usual things you see that are written about prioritization, about all these different techniques you can use and which metrics to kind of come out. We think you really actually need to take a step back before you can get into that level of detail. So first off, centralize your product feedback. The key to prioritization starts with data. If you're working with stale or out-of-date information, you just will not stand a chance. So if you've got a forum full of votes for feature requests, ideas in emails, things floating about in chat widgets, and then customers and prospects talking to support and sales teams or customer success, then it makes your job as a product manager really, really hard. I guarantee you won't be able to make good prioritization decisions. And that's not your fault. It's just the way it is. So get your data in one place. I've actually got a separate webinar about this already. So if you're a smaller company, make sure all product feedback is getting into a spreadsheet or Trello, something like Airtable. And if you're scaling or enterprise, that's where Receptive comes in. It lets you scale your product feedback process. But in summary, you need to create like that go-to place of product feedback. Everybody knows where to put the data, and you as a product team can then access it and use it in your prioritization meetings.
Next up, you have to actually collect the data you need. As a product team, you'll always be dealing with information that's out of context. I'm sure you've all experienced this, where you receive a request and you've just got no idea what it means. This is because you lack the information and context around it. So you need to make sure that you create a centralized place for all your feedback and then ensure everyone knows what sort of data you need and the right questions to ask. As part of this, you should always capture who the product feedback, idea or insight has come from.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it can be a real temptation just to stack up feature requests and see things on a feature level. But we've seen great success with really getting to the bottom of what people's like pain points are, like what pains are they experiencing, and then we leave it to our product teams to actually build the solution. Got a really nice quote about this actually. So we don't know what problems our customers are having, and we can't be creative with solutions when we're just given a list of feature requests from our CS teams. It feels like the power to create a solution is taken out of our hands. So as Joe said there, if you make sure this feedback data is centralized and you ask the right questions up front, then you as a product team have a lot kind of richer data set to actually prioritize with. And just as a little, I'm just going to hop over into a bit of product as an example. So if you pretend these trees are a SaaS product, very nice tree SaaS product here.
Yeah.
So what we have in our product is the ability to, you've got like this little form where you can like make a suggestion, and all this information goes directly to our product teams. And instead of just saying, give us a feature request, we ask, what is the problem? What are you trying to achieve? And do you currently have a workaround? And getting that level of data up front really empowers our product teams, so they know that they can go to this single source of kind of truth when it comes to feedback, which then makes prioritization a whole lot easier.
Okay, so the third point is that you also need to stop prioritizing for other people.
It's controversial, this one.
Oh, sorry, should I deliver that more?
Yeah, you should. It wasn't dramatic enough.
You also need to stop prioritizing for other people. Is that better?
Perfect.
Here's why. First off, you aren't every stakeholder. You can try to understand other people's points of view, but you actually aren't them. You can't predict how or why people will change their priorities over time. So instead, look at what the data is trying to tell you. You can't argue with facts and figures, can you, Han?
You could try, Joe, but
No.
it's a lot harder.
Okay, well, it's harder. So you can, but it's harder. Second, prioritization is done by a few and not the majority. Often when you build a SaaS product, there are a lot of stakeholders who'll all have different demands. For example, you might have a mix of customers from small to large, free trialers, different industries and different locations. And all of these factors can influence the priorities. Then there's different teams. Support are going to want to close those little niggling features and fixes. Sales are going to want the product built in a way to help them close deals. And leadership are going to want the company to grow. It's impossible for product managers to balance all of these demands. So instead, you need to try to prioritize strategically based on your plan and strategy. We'll come on to that in a bit. And finally, priorities change. They change a lot, in fact. As customers get to grips with your product, for example, their wants and needs will change. Early requests from new users just may result from a lack of understanding the existing features. Of course, once they work those features out, their priorities will change. This means you need to make sure that you're always working with the most relevant and up-to-date information.
We really saw the power of this in my last business, which was also a SaaS product. When we introduced a method for customers and teams to prioritize on their own, so we created receptive like area they can go in and change the priorities, that's when our road mapping became a lot more strategic and we were solving like real problems. If you just ask people to vote for features, they'll forget, or it will have mattered to them 6 months ago, but they've got different problems and different requests now. So I think this was like the most positive change we ever made when it came to building SaaS products, was to ask people to prioritize and keep them updated rather than us second guessing the whole time. So the way we do this today is, this is like, again, the little area we give our customers and teams access to. And it's just really simple, just little sliders. It doesn't need to be complicated. And if you're working on a smaller scale, just make sure, you know, going back to the point about getting the right data up front, just ask the priority. There's a huge difference between things that are going to cause churn or prevent sales happening versus little nice to have features, and oh, wouldn't it be nice if this button was blue, and that sort of thing. And we actually prevent everyone from telling us that everything is important, because it never is. You can also just go ahead and kind of get rid of things. And that means, again, our product team have got a really nice, fresh set of data to be working with all the time.
Oh, no.
Oh, sorry,
No.
you're going to have to look at purple slidey bars again.
So unprofessional.
Oh, I can't use my laptop, it's a bit embarrassing. So this is a surprising one, I think, when it comes to prioritization, but we've seen how important this is over and over again, closing the feedback loop. One of the best things that can be done when it comes to prioritization is to keep others in the loop, both customers and internally as well. So doing things like sharing a high-level roadmap, sending updates as items on your roadmap change status, and sharing a release log create an awful lot of buy-in from everyone around you. And this helps keep everyone aligned and like really excited about what you're working on. So instead of just collecting a ton of feedback to help you prioritize, give people something back in return. And then you'll find it actually removes a lot of shoulder tapping from your product team members. And I think the most surprising thing actually is when you're communicating back, people are a lot more willing to get involved. They'll give you good information about the problems they want solving, and they'll prioritize as well.
They feel like they're part of it, don't they?
Yeah.
It's not just moaning. They feel
It's
like they're actually solving a
yeah,
problem.
it removes that sense of, oh, well, I'm not going to bother sending a bit of, useful bit of information over because it just disappears anyway. We've got loads of really good resources around that. So again, we'll make sure you get all the kind of detail at the end in the resources.
Right. So you also need to accept that prioritization is an ongoing process. As we've already covered, the priorities of your stakeholders are going to change all the time. So you need to make sure you've got a process in place to capture that. I'm sure a lot of you already have this, but just make sure that you're prioritizing the problems you need to solve at a time to suit you. So this is where your plan comes in. Your plan shouldn't change too frequently. If it is, then you may be starting to asking the question about why that is. A good way to prioritize is to have regular sessions. So our research found that 60% of SaaS companies have a prioritization meeting either every month or every quarter. This is a good idea as it gives you the time between sessions to really knuckle down and focus on building the right features.
And then the last one, we were dead excited to share this actually. It was something we introduced not very long ago, actually. It was the end of last year, but we've seen a lot of success very quickly in our customer base. And it's called the Product Feedback Policy. So our head of customer success, Ali Mayhan, came up with this after running Name drop. Hi, Ali. She came up with this. She runs these really cool, this really cool podcast called The Feedback Loop. I say we, that's the royal we. Ali facilitates learning between our customers. So it's usually she takes a new customer and then someone who's been with us a long time, and gets them together for like Q&A session. You can go and listen to those.
We'll send her the link.
Yep. And she developed the idea of the product feedback policy, and it's something you can put in place today. You don't need any software. It's just a document. So essentially, your product feedback policy governs and lays out the whole process that you employ.
Is that one?
That is, I don't know what that is. No, I don't know. It could be. Yes, it is. So it kind of lays out how you manage product feedback, and it also includes how you prioritize what makes it onto your product roadmap. It tells everyone in your organization and your customers exactly what you're up to, so it sets expectations really nicely. And a good comparison would be, imagine trying to run a massive support team with no support SLAs in place, or not having an employee handbook, like no one would know what to do ever. I don't know. But the best part is
I liked the analogy.
was that a good analogy? Oh my gosh. So the best part is it's really, really simple to put together. And I'll show you, we've got a couple of examples. This is one by a company called Influitive. It outlines how the company approaches feedback, says this is how you submit it. So again, you're making sure that data that you're going to use to prioritize is all getting to the product team and going in one place. It cuts duplicate ideas out. And then it just gives kind of top tips and like an FAQs. And we've got something similar as well, which has been really useful. And in here you can outline, thank you for your feedback, customers. We take this seriously. This is what happens. This is how we prioritize. And just setting those expectations takes like a massive weight off the product team. It works really nicely.
So to summarize that section, bad information equals bad prioritization. Follow those top tips we just ran through to improve how you prioritize. And don't forget to write a product feedback policy.
Yeah.
And, if you do, share them with us as well, because
Yeah.
we're interested to see them.
Yeah, please do send more over.
Send them in on a postcard.
A postcard.
Yeah, that's all right.
We're a technology
I've always
company.
wanted to
We
be
like
a
postcards.
kids TV presenter. So.
Good luck with that, Joe. So finally, to kind of wrap this all up, again, just taking a little step back away from that granular prioritization we're all used to. This is on a high level what you need to think about to create your balanced product roadmap. So I hope the best practices have helped. And I think at the moment we see a lot of product teams are prioritizing based on like a small set of information that's spread around the company. So until you've got like a plan and a separate channel for product ideas and feedback, prioritization is guesswork, gut feeling, and a whole lot of politics. However, there is a massive opportunity here to make product improvements and add features that really solve the problems of your target customers and drive the growth of your business. So we call this product demand intelligence. It's being able to make data-informed decisions based on the feedback you get from your customers, your teams, and your market. So they're your three main inputs, the three places that you get information that you then prioritize with. And taking this a step further, just to slice and dice this up, this is what us as product managers deal with every day. I think this little graph like really emphasizes why you need to capture who product feedback and ideas are coming from so that you can actually prioritize effectively. So running through some examples, like last year we ran a big integration project that was aimed at our enterprise users. So our product team took all the prioritized feedback from enterprise users, and we looked at the segment from sales team as well, anything that was relevant. And this is really about understanding the plan again, back to the plan of the company. So if you're running a project to reduce churn, you might want to look at what churned users are after and not, really happy, good fit users. So it's about being able to look at the right sets of prioritized data, like when you need it. And that's the reward for sorting the process side out. Just to show you that in action, really. The way we do this is through our reporting. So we have customers and team members prioritizing and adding their problem sets into receptive for us. Then in the reporting, we can just slice that up really easily. We can see, what requests from high value customers. We can look at what prospects need. We can look at what customers need, and then we can break that down however we like. So with a little bit of process, this is where you can get to. I did it again.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I wasn't going to say anything.
I wasn't going to say anything, but so in summary, balancing your roadmap comes from understanding the company plan. Everything you're doing, the problems you're solving should align with that. You should always know who product feedback has come from. So stop seeing, ideas and feature requests and problem sets as like one massive blob. Is that a technical term? Blob of feedback? Joe's giving me a right look. Know who your feedback's coming from, and then you can use it when you need it. And this is all like an ongoing process.
I mean, you just look dramatically at me. I don't know if you want me to say anything at this point.
We've got heaps of resources about the stuff we've talked about. So we'll make sure it's all sent out to you tomorrow, like along with the recording as well. Questions? Does anyone have any questions?
Do you know what? I am pleased to announce that we have no questions
yet.
And this is where they all come flooding in now that I've said that.
Mm-hmm.
So either we've done a really good job at explaining everything, Han, or we've sent them all to sleep. So
or no one understood it.
Well, no, then they would have questions. That's the one time that you do have the questions.
I was so confused. Cool. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at prioritization at like a different angle to the stuff you normally see. So stop, take that step back, get those things in place, and then you'll be guaranteed to have some real successes with your product. And good luck. Let us know what you've thought, and talk to you on the next one next month.